In the northern area, it was Habataki's dominion. However, the situation was beginning to take a turn for the better, with the entry of Yuki and his group into the war. "That's Yuki-kun for you," Mai murmured, dumbfounded. Seeing him utilize her authority better than she could herself, Mai had no choice but to admit it with mixed feelings. Mai had her hands full just trying to maintain the status quo by desperately interfering with Habataki's instant teleportation. However, Yuki had pulled off a stunt that made little sense, limiting the locations where Habataki could appear. Simple, right? If you interfere with space like this, the places unaffected become limited. We're inside a barrier anyway, so it's not that difficult a concept, Yuki said nonchalantly to Mai. Of course, as Yuki himself stated, this was only possible because it was within a limited space. In reality, having gained intelligence in her beautiful female form, Habataki recognized the warriors of the north as her prey. That is precisely why she remained here without trying to go elsewhere. If Habataki had broken through the holy field and gone outside, predicting her teleportation destination would have been impossible. That is why Yuki declared that the current situation was fortunate. Even so, Yuki's expression was grim. Habataki was a more difficult enemy than anticipated. "Tisk, I thought we could finish her off by ourselves, but is this going to be too tough?" Yuki assessed calmly. Although they had shifted from maintaining the status quo to going on the offensive, they hadn't produced results. Just as Mai had been surprised, Yuki had correctly predicted Habataki's appearance point. They had concentrated all their firepower there, yet Habataki remained almost unscathed. Good grief, how pathetic. To think she remains unfazed even after we hit her with our strongest magic. Adalman and Gatra apologized to Yuki, looking ashamed. However, this was not solely their fault. Cover fire from the Bloody Knight scattered across various locations, the numerous magical weapons of the Magus led by Elmesia and Sylvia, and the 100 members of the Black Numbers under Diablo, currently under Gatra's command, had all fired their strongest magic, slamming maximum firepower into that single instant. It simply hadn't worked on Habataki. That was all there was to it. Habataki had applied the laws of instant teleportation to teleport all the firepower concentrated on her away. To be shown such an absurd authority would normally be enough to break one's spirit. But Yuki was different. It can't be helped. In the first place, thanks to you being here, everyone is following my plan, Yuki said, comforting Gatra. In fact, it would have been natural for everyone to ignore the plan of a former traitor and newcomer to this battle like Yuki. It was Gatra who mediated, and Benimaru who gathered information from the entire battlefield via thought communication who made it happen. I approve that plan. It is only for this occasion, but let us leave the operational command of the north to Yuki. Due to this decision by Benimaru, Yuki was now the commander. That was how the great offensive was carried out, but the result was failure. They had consumed a valuable opportunity without dealing much damage to Habataki. However, Yuki was not the type to give up over this. On the contrary, having seen Habataki's defensive technique, he seemed to have gained an idea and immediately came up with the next plan. Alright, then we'll execute the next plan, but we don't need a large number of people for this. We'll disband for now, so everyone go do your best subjugating the flying cryptids. And so, in a truly carefree manner, he dismissed everyone and began to execute a plan involving only his own group. What's this? We ain't gonna attack all together again. It's pointless to do it again. Besides, if we repeat it too many times, she won't fall for the trap. It might work one more time, but that earlier strategy isn't something to put on repeat. Laplace, who intended to slam maximum firepower into Habataki's appearance point once more, was surprised that Yuki returned command authority to Benimaru. If he asked, he might get it back, but Benimaru was not naive. If it wasn't an effective strategy, there wouldn't be a second time. To the surprised Laplace, Yuki replied, "It's not a strategy we can overuse." Then, he explained the next plan, but that plan was, again, outrageous. Mai, who was included as a collaborator as a matter of course, asked in a mutter, looking as if she couldn't believe it. "You're lying, right? Can you really do that?" "Theoretically." Now. If the boss says he can do it, just leave it to him. If it fails, it's the boss's responsibility anyway. That's harsh, Laplace. My plans had 0 failures until I got involved with Rimuru-san, you know. It's been failure after failure since then. Your credibility is thin right now, boss. While complaining like that, Laplace believed Yuki's words and followed orders. The same was true for Kagari and Tyr. Well, true. The boss has always been shady, so it's nothing new. Stop complaining and just do as you're told quickly. I'm doing it. Laplace, that part of you is no good. You think being a bit nihilistic makes you look cool or something, don't you? What's wrong with that? Let me think that at least. Laplace desperately retorted, but was merely brushed off with a yes. 2 women looked at such a Laplace with scornful eyes. You really are treated lightly wherever you go, aren't you? This was a remark directed at her husband, with whom she had reunited for the first time in about 2,000 years, by Sylvia, who was not his ex, but his current wife. There was certainly love there, but it also contained a slight exasperation. We really do not want to acknowledge such a person as our father. Omija followed up in her celestial emperor mode. There was some shyness involved, but more than half of it was her honest feeling. She hadn't wanted to see the pathetic side of a father she hadn't met since birth. It was precisely because she had such thoughts that her evaluation of Laplace became harsh. Moreover, she had been raised listening to heroic tales from her mother Sylvia, such as, "Al-chan, your father was truly amazing. After all, he was a hero who saved the weak." Even if she looked like she might catch a cold from the gap between expectation and reality, one should argue that it wasn't Omija's fault. Thinking this, Omija decided to postpone improving her relationship with Laplace for the time being. "I wish you would perform well enough to make me reconsider him," even a little. Her eyes looking at Laplace were cold. While Laplace was being treated as the butt of the joke, Yuki tightened the relaxed atmosphere. Okay. The plan is exactly as I just said. I'll deliver it inside her body, so pour your power into the bombs and hand them over. It was no wonder Mai thought it impossible. The plan Yuki established was reckless. Yuki would use instant teleportation to smash the bombs created by Laplace and the others directly into Habataki. And inside her body, no less. Furthermore, the term bomb was merely an expression, not actual explosives. He had them prepare their authorities by infusing them into spirit bullets or activating them in cursed tools, whatever form they were best at. For example, in Omija's case, she formed an energy bullet about the size of a volleyball, and continued to compress it, while keeping her authority active. If this exploded, it would generate wind currents of Godspeed, creating a catastrophe that would slice through all creation. However, since a sphere lacked speed, it was a technique unusable in actual combat. Yuki had told her that was fine for this occasion, that maximum power was the highest priority, so she prepared it. Sylvia did similarly with the lightning sphere. Laplace and Tyr prepared spirit bullets. Kagari prepared explosive curse tags. Adalman chanted disintegration, and Gadra wrapped it in void. "We can't actually shoot this out properly, is this really okay? You've taken on a youthful appearance, yet you speak with that tone. It feels incredibly incongruous, and I feel like I'm being mocked, so I wish you'd stop." That technique, a collaboration between Gadra and Adalman, a mass that could be named a pseudo-void collapse indeed, had no means of being thrown at the enemy. Its power was undoubtedly supreme, but precisely because of that, Gadra and the others were worried that activating it here would be extremely dangerous. To Gadra, who worried it was an outrageous combined technique, Yuki answered aloofly. There was not a shred of anxiety in his demeanor, so Gadra had no choice but to believe. Thus, the next attack commenced. Yuki predicted the future arrival point based on Habataki's movements, and successively threw bombs into the body of the Habataki, appearing there via instant teleportation. Habataki, now in the form of a beautiful woman, was confused by the situation she was placed in. Sensory-wise, her combat capabilities had increased. The load on her processing power was lighter than when she was in her demonic bird form, and she could use instant teleportation at will. That applied not only to herself. The effect of preventing all harmful phenomena was also perfect. Getting bathed in concentrated fire at her teleportation destination was a miscalculation, but that was likely just bad luck. In fact, she took almost no damage, so the memory was already fading. However, the next attack was different. Yes, for the first time in her life, Habataki felt distinct pain. Yuki and the others were hiding in the shadow of rocks. They used Laplace's skill to cut off their presence, taking care not to be discovered. In contrast, Habataki remained floating in the sky with the dignity of a king, glaring down at the ground. It was then that Habataki suddenly felt pain around her flank. "First, shot one," Yuki murmured, though naturally, his voice did not reach Habataki's ears. Without understanding what had happened, Habataki placed her hand on her flank to heal. She felt pain, but it wasn't significant damage. Even in human form, her body composition remained the same as the demonic bird. What flowed out was not red blood, but liquefied magicules. The hole closed just by willing it, and the outflow of magicules stopped. The problem was not knowing what had happened. "That hurts." An honest impression spilled from Habataki's lips. Immediately distorting her face in displeasure, she scattered a blizzard of feathers in all directions. Habataki's feathers, hiding the power of destruction, each possessed enough power to slaughter a demon lord seed. However, since they weren't aimed at specific targets, there were no fatalities from this attack. However, there were many casualties. It was a supreme stroke of luck that no one died before Mizeri could activate Sanctuary Regeneration. It was an attack that intense, yet for Habataki, it was merely an action on the level of swatting away a noisy fly. It was effective. Nice. You certainly are positive. Of course. Concentrated fire didn't work, so anything that looks like a clue to defeating her is welcome. While encouraging himself like that, Yuki prepared the next round. The effect was weak, but as Mai had been astonished to see, what he was doing was absurd. The first move was an experiment using Laplace's full power energy sphere. It was a super compressed item impossible to complete in actual combat. Since the result was merely Habitaki saying that hurts, Laplace was secretly depressed. But Yuki didn't mind and began sending them in all at once this time. Numerous secret techniques specialized solely in power, which the strong gathered here could never use in real combat. One after another, they exploded inside Habitaki's body. I won't give you time to heal. Come on, next. There's no way we can prepare him that fast. As always, you make us do reckless things. If I could fire off such dangerous techniques in rapid succession, I would have reached a higher rank. Laplace complained, and Gadra agreed. The others were silent, but their eyes were filled with dissatisfaction toward Yuki. Ah, well, I thought you guys would try your best, but sorry. Yuki was aware he was asking for the unreasonable, so he apologized honestly.